Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, whatever the case may be. Behind me is our 1993 VW Cabriolet. This car's been in some of my previous videos, not too much lately. It's just kind of our spare car, but unfortunately it sits outside. Being a convertible, sitting outside is probably not the best for it. So as I said, this car's a 1993, and as far as I know, that's the original top. I have no reason to believe it isn't. And it started to develop some cracks and holes in it, so we're going to go ahead and replace it. The actual top surface is in decent shape, other than it's a little dirty, and it'll clean up a little bit, but it won't get completely white anymore. This crack has developed. This is actually kind of where it folds. It seems like they all crack right here. So that cracked, and also there's a cable in here and that broke, so that's no longer doing what it should. And this hole's developed down here where it attaches. Crack starting to develop there. Same deal. This is where it folds up, and you can see this cable's about gone. So I have a new top and new cables. So let's get started. Let me start out by removing these little plastic pieces at each corner. And that is where the rear tensioning cable goes to the inside of the car. It's also where I believe the top boot attaches there when the top's down. So next, here in the back of the car, we need to pull off the wires for the rear defrost. There's one on each side. So we pull them off, and then we need to push the window out from the inside to the outside. All right. Just go easy because you don't want to break it. Now remember, those wires are going down inside there, so they need to peel out. So this rear defrost wire goes through a hole in the glass frame. Okay, now you got the window.
Yeah.
So that was pretty difficult. Basically, you just push the rubber seal out, put the window in a safe place, and then we'll need to come back at some point and pull all these staples out. I think at this point, we'll go ahead and fold the top open and start working on getting the front detached. Just basically start taking screws out and get all this trim off. Same deal down here. It should be attached underneath this rubber trim. And there's some screws up here and screws all along this top front bow, so we'll have to get those out. These little caps are screwed on the end. After some messing around with a screwdriver, I was finally able to get the seal. It fits in a little groove in this metal channel. I was able to get it pulled loose out of there. So that sort of profile, that seal snaps in those little grooves. I don't know if that's some silicone or if that is some of that seal left behind, but there are screws. And they look a little rusty. So there we go, it's a little bent up. We'll need to flatten that out before we put it back. It looks like there was some foam sort of tape stuff in there. This plastic insert went through that little piece, so that'll be interesting. Putting that back, we'll just stick that back in the hole for now. So we don't really need to mess with any of this because the top is not captured there. So we'll come back to right here, and then this, I assume this piece of weather strip will do the same thing. It'll peel out, and then there'll be screws under it attaching this portion of the top. I don't know if it'll show up. This bottom screw is completely about disintegrated. So that's going to need to be drilled out. Try a 3/32 drill bit on this one. Move up to a 5/32 to get the head off. Like so. And for the most part, that came off. So there's these little plastic inserts that those screws attach to. So the screw is not exactly like screwed into the metal of the top frame. There are these little plastic wedges the screw goes into. So we'll need to try to save all these, peel them out of this piece of the top. So I'll get them peeled out, and then the actual top material on the old top is kind of glued in there. So we'll need to peel that glue off as well. So that's all peeled off or ripped off. So that this one top side cable frame actually attaches with a little spring. At least it feels like a spring in this plastic tube right here. So we'll need to bend this little tab over, and that'll pull out. And then this is the one that's already broken anyway. So there's that. So the top's kind of ripped away down here. Inside this groove is a cable. It runs around, it goes through a hole into the car. I'm not even sure if I can show you over here, but it ends up right down in here. And there's a 10 millimeter, at least in this case, nut on the end of it. So the cable runs down here, and then the nut is right on the opposite side of this. In this instance, it's 10 millimeter. The directions say to get this strut rod out of the way, and that'll help get access to that nut. So this gas strut is supposed to help you lift the top. It's held on with one of these C-clips. There's a big thick washer on the other side, and then it should push off, and it's on a little linkage down here, and it'll kind of get out of your way. And theoretically, you can get a wrench in there and loosen this cable. So by holding the cable with these long needle nose, once I got the nut loose, I was able to get it off by hand. So now that should pull out of its little guide down here. Like so. I'm going to go ahead and spread this little gap open for where the new cable goes through, because I'm not sure the new one's going to fit while I'm here. Not exactly sure what the order of events need to be, but I know all these staples need to come out of the top that holds it to the window bow. So I'll just get a screwdriver and start digging those out. The best method I found doing this, I have this pick, a hook on it. Kind of get one leg of the staple pulled out. Go back with a pair of needle nose. And these staples are stainless steel also. So let's keep going. What we're after is there's sort of a composite piece of plastic glued to this metal, and that's what the staples are attached to. All the staples are pulled out finally, and that's how many there were. So they're all out. I ended up getting the nut off this other side of the top. I also took this top strut assembly, a 13 millimeter head bolt holds that whole thing on. I'm not sure it made it much easier. I'm not sure how we're going to put that back together. So I need to pop this cable out of here on this side. This one's also broken. This one's broken here. There's the rest of it. And then we need to go up the top, the front, and peel off all of that stuff out of the way. And then I noticed here there's a strip of fabric sewn into the top that comes through the headliner and is attached with a rivet right here, I'm assuming on both sides. So that rivet's, one flap holds the headliner, one flap holds the top, so that rivet's going to have to get drilled out. So I'll go ahead and get that drilled out too. There's the rivet on this side. And on the inside of that, it's both pieces and a washer that I guess we're going to have to put back. Ooh. So this should all, I would guess this should all peel off right here. I think all that I'll need to do is figure out how we get this cable off. Feels like it's wrapped around some sort of pin on the backside, so we'll have to get that off there. The headliner is going to stay because it is good enough. I think we'll go in here and try to clean up some of this rust. Maybe put some rust restorer on it. All that should be able to stay. And none of this metal appears to be rotted, so that's a good sign. So the next day, where the lining of the headliner is a little jacked up here, we just glued it back with some spray adhesive. I'm not too concerned about that rip. I also brushed up, sanded some of this rust in the window bow and sprayed it with some rust converter. So that should be stopped rusting at this point. I think I'll vacuum this out and then we'll bring the new top out. I'll let this sit here a few minutes and kind of get its shape figured out a little bit. I got a new cable to go with the new top, and it kind of runs, it pinches the top in this fold over part of the body. So first off, I need to take this end of the cable with the stud on it and push it through the hole right here in the top. And then that will go through the hole down in here where we took the nut off of it earlier. I'll go ahead and get the other side stuffed in, and then these little tabs will go around the cable, and that is what will hold the tonneau cover on the top, and the top's down. It'll make more sense in a second. So the instructions call for you to measure the top and mark the center, but I'm pretty much lining up with these seams on the outer seam right here. So I have this pretty much centered. I also cleaned out this groove and put some wax in there because that's probably the only time in this life it'll ever be waxed. So we'll get this centered up, and then I'll try starting in the middle. Taped up this little kind of pry tool. We need to stuff this top up in this groove all the way around. And then we need to come back and stuff the cable in after that. So let me work on this for a while, and I'm just going to work my way out from the center. So you can stuff the top in there, but eventually it just eases its way back out. So I'm going to go ahead. I think I have this plastic sheath on this cable centered up enough. I'm going to go ahead and just start seeing if I can push that in there at the same time. Maybe that will help hold it, because that's the next step anyway. You supposedly get this jammed in there and then come back and put the cable in. So maybe we can sort of eliminate a step. So I have this stuffed in most of the way. It still doesn't really want to go all the way in. So I found that a little persuasion with a heat gun will help it kind of retain its shape, or at least makes it more pliable.
especially where you have the seam and the little loop for the cover. I feel like a little heat really helps get that like quadruple thickness stuffed in there. Like at this point, I've hit the point of diminishing returns, getting all this jammed in there. So I'm going to take the front of the top and loop it over the front of the frame, and we'll try to help pull this in with the actual top frame. So we've heated, pushed, tightened, pushed, heated some more, worked our way around, and I think we're pretty good. I've tightened the cable some. You pretty much have to go in and try to squeeze the pinch the cable, the edge of the stud, and then you can get a ratchet wrench in there and turn it. Otherwise, you're going to twist the cable and potentially break it. So that's about halfway tightened, I think. We'll try it, lowering it again and see how it does, because it's going to be tight. So we're getting there. These flaps are going to eventually have to come around and get glued and attached. So definitely needs to do some more stretching. So I think we'll kind of leave it like this and hit the whole thing with the heat gun to try to relax it some more. Okay, we've heated and pulled and tugged, and I think it's as good as it's going to get. So now the instructions say to go ahead and fold it halfway back, or back to where you can reach it. And then we need to go ahead and glue the front. So we can go ahead and pull this off. When I took this off, there really wasn't a whole lot glued. So I'm just going to add a little spray adhesive. Right around the front corners. All right, pull it down. It should find its kind of home shape. And get this front rolled around a little bit. This corner. Push this welt straight into the peak. So it's pointing straight forward. All right, now let's fold it back. All the directions I've read are a little conflicting, so we're just going to go ahead, since this is glued, I have this front bow piece we took off, and it should line up with existing holes. So we'll go ahead and squeeze this down in. So that's not too bad. We can always readjust that later if we need to. We'll come back later and trim that off. So I guess next we'll go ahead and put the cable in. You may remember the old top of the cable was broken right here, and the top was actually split where it folds. So it comes with a string sewn into it, and the back end of the string is back here where it goes to this metal piece on the top frame, I guess I should say. So there's the front where the cable comes through. The knob it attaches to is actually right here. You probably can't even see it. The cable runs through this pocket back here, back down here, and that's where the spring hooked to it. We'll go ahead and make the loop on the front, get that attached, get the cable through, and then we'll figure out how long to cut it and reattach the spring. This kit came with new cables for the sides. And these little ferrules to stop it. So for the front one, I'm just going to make a loop. And that loop was pretty tiny. We might actually want to go ahead over to the car and slide that around that little post and then crimp it there at the car. So there's the little post, and I'm afraid if I make it too big, the loop too big, it's going to come off there. So we'll just make it, I'll cinch that up so it can't come off. Instructions call for taking a C-clamp, so let's see if the old, cheap old school wire crimpers will do it. That should be good. Just go ahead and tape this string to the cable. Let's hope it'll make it through. Now we'll take the old cable off and have to cut this one and crimp it, but probably going to need to lower the top and figure out what length this needs to be. So since both these were broken, it's kind of hard to tell, but there's a little rectangular slot right here. So I'm going to make the assumption that cable is supposed to go through that slot. And then it attaches down here, so you need to kind of just take a wild guess at how long it needs to be. So the hook is right in that vicinity, putting the spring top right up around here so I can go ahead and feed it through. I can play around with the length and then crimp it. So that should give it a little bit of spring tension since we're not pulled all the way down. I'm just gonna go with it right there. I guess I probably should have slid this on first. I'm going to try a little different approach on this side. I already crimped this end through the spring, got it in its little protective tube. Now I'll go ahead and feed it up and we'll hook it on the front. Oh no, my shitty tape didn't make it, so maybe we can shove it the rest of the way. So I had some electric fence wire laying around that I was able to fish through there. So in the event you have garbage tape or your top doesn't come with a string already in it, you can fish it through that way. I got some electrical tape this time. We'll give that a shot. I think that loop might be a little stiff, so we'll just taper in straight like that. And actually I ran into a situation one time putting a top on a Fiat where they had inadvertently sewn the pull string into the channel, so it wouldn't come out either end. I had to end up doing this anyway. Plus it was stuck in there, so it made it even more difficult. So I have the spring attached at the rear. I'll go ahead and bend down that little tab that's in there so the spring doesn't fall off. So now I can pull on it, feel some tension, and go ahead and get it looped around up here at the front. So you may remember there was a strap, the headliner strap, still here, and then the top strap comes down through the headliner padding. Well, I guess they're both through the padding, but that's so thick there's no real way to shove the new top through there. So here's what I did on the other side. Just tape the flap to a screwdriver. Kind of help work it down through there. So now you use whatever means you have to put a hole in there. I have these rivet washers. Since this hole's rather large, this size of the rivet would just fall through it. Get the top through it, and then the pad through its existing hole, and then another one of these rivet washers on the back. At least that's how I did the other side. And then that should be attached, and I think that really just functions to keep everything lined up. And when you fold the top, from keeping it to help pull this part down in. I guess there's no better time than the present. I can go ahead and start trimming this excess off. Not a whole lot I can do if it's not right at this point. I'm just trying to be careful so I don't cut through the headliner. I suppose I could actually cut through the back. Don't remember where I left off yesterday, but I got the side pieces in the front screwed down. Got the rear struts reattached down in there. Got the rear cable tightened. I still need to attach this trim that holds this flap on the rear to get this part pulled tight, and then we'll have to do the rear window still. So obviously I don't have enough pull right here to do that, so what I'm going to do is I just have it latched on the first stop in the front. I'll take the heat gun, heat this up real well, unlatch it, tilt it back, and then we can glue and get the screws in and get these pieces in there that hold the top down in the back, because it needs to come forward quite a bit to get this corner up to here. So I'm hoping by getting those attached and easing it back forward, we won't like rip a huge hole in this. So I got the top attached on this side. Not super crazy about how the bottom turned out, but maybe over its lifetime as it stretches, it'll pull forward and I can get the rest of that. I just don't want to do any irreparable damage and rip it. So let me show you how I do it on the other side. So how I did it, and I'm sure there's other ways. Pull this up to the edge and kind of figure out where your corner is going to be and just kind of make a decision where it's going to be and go for it. So on this particular top, this is shaped a little different than the one I took off, because the one I took off actually utilized that top hole. I'm afraid if I do that, it's going to be up too far and it's not going to be right. So what I did on the other side is came down a little bit, maybe a 1/4 inch above where this little step in the metal is. Kind of get it where you sort of want it pulled in position. I've been using this Loctite spray adhesive. Give that a minute or so to kind of tack up a little bit. Just sort of work down the edge here. Push it where it needs to go. And I've already preheated this vinyl back here. I think at this point it's already lost all its heat, to help it soften up and maybe stretch a little bit, or maybe not. stuff sticks pretty well. So we're looking for the square holes. There's one right there. I'll just take a razor blade, kind of cut the square out. And take one of these plastic inserts, tap it in the hole, work your way down, find the next hole. You could actually reach around the back and find it on the back of the metal also. There it is. So down here at the bottom there's a round hole, and then slightly below that is the square hole. So if your luck's like mine and you lost some of these, I found these at the Home Depot. Everbuilt license plate nut. It looks like a 575 456, if that's the right number. It's a number 6 license plate nut, and it is pretty much an exact match. So we'll stick it up here in this hole. It doesn't get covered by the top. And then just put your trim back on. So it still has some of the kind of foam seal on the back. And where it did rip off, I was able to get it stuck back on all the other pieces. So, and also if some of your screws got stripped out, these are number 6 by half stainless screws. They're pretty much almost an exact copy also. The problem is stainless, not magnetic. So when you're trying to do this wrong-handed, Alright, so we're going to ease it down, hope it doesn't blow out. Still pulls back here a little more than I would like, but I'm not exactly sure what I can do about that at this point. So I can't really pull this any more forward. But in general, that's not terrible. And as I said, later on if we get some sags here, we can unscrew this trim, try to pull this around some more and tighten this gap up. Now for what possibly is the most terrifying part of this whole process. Now we have the top on here and stretched tight, we need to cut a hole for the rear window. None of these tops come with a window in them. You have to cut that on your own. The first time I ever did this was on an old school Bug, like a 79, and we were putting a canvas top on, and the dude that was working with me putting it on, we actually flipped a coin to decide who was going to do this because we thought we might cut it and just rip the whole top. Fortunately it did not. So anyway, the frame is down here and right here. Some people say you can go ahead and staple it now, but I can't get enough angle on that. So we're going to go ahead and cut it, cut a round hole, be able to reach in, pull it tight, a couple staples at the bottom, a couple at the top. Here goes. All right, I think we can go a little bigger than that. Fortunate for me, my wife has this fancy ass staple gun, so we're going to use that. You could do this by hand. I wouldn't recommend it, so I'm trying to pull this tight. Shoot a couple staples in here. Those could be a little deeper. And if I didn't mention, these are stainless staples. Next, I should be able to do the same thing up the top. Again, pretty much right in the middle. Let's pull it tight. So, work some in the bottom, cut a little bigger, work our way out as we pull it tight. These are what I chose, by the way. T50 stainless steel, 3/8 inch. They seem to be a good compromise. I also found with this particular staple gun, if I can space them about that far, it'll drive them in better. Anyway, I've just kind of been working my way around the sides, the bottom, and as I kind of sneak up on the corners, I just trim a little more away. Give it a little more to pull on. So just do what works best for you as far as cutting the reliefs into the corners. Don't get it too close, which that might be a little close right there. But once the window's in, this will all be sealed up. Might be a little close there. Might want to leave them a little longer. Those of you following along at home. So I'll continue this until we get the whole window stapled in. So it's all stapled. Looks to be pretty square, straight, pretty tight. Don't have any goofy wrinkles anywhere that I can see. I think I'll let this sit overnight with that amount of staples in it. See how it stretches. It's just hooked on the hooks. It's not pulled all the way down. So tomorrow, see what it looks like, trim the rest of this out, and we'll put the window in and we should be close to being done. It sat overnight and nothing ripped out or unstapled itself. So now I'll take said razor blade and just try to trim the top material flush with the metal on the inside. Probably don't want to slip during this step. So we've cleaned the rear window, cleaned all the rust out of the groove. I've liberated some of my wife's crafty rope. We just put the window back in. You can use thick string. I've used electrical wire. Anything similar to this should work. Go ahead and cut it a little long. So roughly split it in half, start at the top, and then the groove around this window rubber kind of on the inside, you want to feed the rope in there, kind of pull it in there tight, get that pulled into that groove as tight as it'll go. You kind of want it to stick in there. And here at the bottom, typically you kind of overlap it into that groove and then leave both tails hanging out. So the theory is, I'm not sure how well this will show up in the car. We'll push it into the opening, and then one person on the inside pulls on the rope, and it kind of overlaps this rubber seal, and that'll help it
kind of go around on the inside of the car. I'm sure this won't show up, but we fed the wire through the inside of the seal for the rear defroster. Window frame is just kind of sitting in here. What sometimes works is shoot a little bit of glass cleaner all the way around inside that groove, top and bottom, and that sort of helps lubricate it. Shit. I just kind of pull down on it too. Keep pressure on it hard. Yeah, keep pushing down over here so that lip on the inside is wrapped. It is actually all the way around the metal. So now sometimes you have to take this outer seal, like right here, and make sure it's popped over the outside. And if you ever watch the glass company guys, they would slap on it like this to help shake that seal in the rest of the way. So what we pretty much did when we took this rubber seal and that rope, kind of pulled it under and allowed it to come over the metal on this side. We could be a little better over here. So we'll just do some tapping on that, and that should eventually pull itself down in. And then we'll have to put the little plastic grommets on there. And then next we'll go in the trunk and we can reattach this headliner down below. Didn't show taking that out, but I'll show putting it back. I'm not sure how much we caught of that, but window is in. It's kind of seated all the way around. Well, I could show it from the inside because I could barely fit in there. I'm not sure if I showed it or if it showed up. But I removed these panels in the trunk, and that accesses this kind of sail panel of the headliner. So that pulls down over these little spikes right here. I'm not sure I can do it one-handed. Once you get it pulled over, you just tap these little spikes back up, and that'll keep it from coming off. And then this panel goes back up. And somewhere around here, well, this will pull down too, but somewhere around here I have the little plastic rivets that go in these holes to hold this up. This one's already a little mangled on this side. I guess at this point we'll give it a quick test and see if it'll latch without blowing out a big rip in it, or blowing out the rear window or something similar to that. I'm not real crazy about how this little nose piece here is sticking up, but we might be able to work on that a little bit. Okay, so now that nothing horrible happened, we can unlatch it. Should be able to open it and nothing bad should happen. Now we can go in here where this, I guess you'd call it the C panel, attached, and go ahead and trim the excess material off of this.
So that's trimmed. This piece of weather stripping goes right here, that part to the inside, and then there's some little clips that slides under on each end to keep it down. And then there's a little kind of a tab that slides under this groove. And if you can get it tucked in and get it started, you can kind of hold it down and kind of work it in, and it'll go pretty quickly. Of course, it slid up. And I think on different year tops, different year cars, this trim might have changed slightly. I'm not sure. So yours might be different. But anyway, put it back in. Replace it if you need to. I mean, this is in immaculate shape. This piece up here above the window was actually kind of siliconed in there. I guess this is some additional weather protection. So this screw will need to come out, and I'll probably put a new stainless one in there. And then this had silicone kind of at both ends. So we'll go ahead and clean off what's on here, peel off anything loose, get a screw and silicone that, and then put this in. Only appeared to have silicone applied at the ends, so that's all I'm going back with. Again, it has this tab at this end that it slides into, and then up at this end, a screw. So there, it looks to be all tucked in. Getting close to the end here, this little trim piece on the side. There's an existing hole in the body that it goes in. I also cleaned a lot of the dirt off of it. So we'll get it started in that. And then I've seen where you can kind of trim this welting back. I'm not going to do that for right now, because I'm hoping this will stretch some more and I can tighten this up, pull this a little tighter, and then we can cut it off. For right now, we're just going to give it some road time. So I did come in here and kind of re-screw some of this stuff along this top seam. I think it's better. It's not 1000%. Again, I think we'll let this live on the car for a while and stretch. But the cables seem to do what they're supposed to be doing. I think this back needs to stretch a little bit. Kind of pull this cable around some more, pull it up in the little groove. But for the most part, really can't complain. This is what we had. And that thing lasted 30 years, so I guess I really can't complain about it either. Obviously, I didn't replace the headliner. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's not ripped. I think a good scrubbing, it'll be good. Good enough anyway. Anyway, that's replacing the top on your VW Cabriolet. Pretty much whenever the Rabbit convertible came out, 80, 81, somewhere in there, up till 93 or 94 when they quit making them. Thanks for watching. See you next time.